odd as it may seem, Max, you and I have something in common. We're both perceived as monsters.
I was in makeup 66 days. It was a long time, but once you got it on, it was so good. It was so nice to be in that skin of Oswald Cobblepot.
You're a well-respected monster, and I am, to date, not.
Whenever you do a movie with Tim Burton, you have to know up front that Tim always has ideas. He had his concept of who the Penguin would be. So when we went to the design boards and started our sketches based on Danny DeVito, we had to, of course, instill the Tim Burton signatures. So we're talking about a character with white skin and dark circles around his eyes. It's a signature, and it works perfectly. It's not out of place for this particular character.
You know, I'd worked with Stan before on Scissorhands and his group of people, and so they were really always, I felt, really good at taking whatever little scribbles or whatever in essences and really bringing it to life and making it real.
When we see the initial sketch that Tim brings in, he doesn't always have down exactly what he wants the face to look like or what the makeup is going to be. So from his sketch, from that attitude, we expand on it. So what we do is take photographs of Danny DeVito and just play with his face, you know, trying to get it as close to Tim's drawings as we can and keep that character yet still make it look like Danny DeVito. The most prominent thing that we're going to do is change his nose. So these sketches are pretty much just playing with noses.
When you get into then creating the actual beak, the feeling, the penguin look concepts where noses were beaks, bigger and broader, there's that little bit of organic feeling of this guy really could look like this.
We did a quickie appliance just for the test to see if Danny could be expressive through it if he'd like it, and he did. And so from this point now, I'm just taking these shapes and refining them into his life cast with a bit more emphasis on his own structure. You study the pore texture and the character of his own face and transfer it as much as possible within this new character so that a lot of Danny is being projected forward. It's almost like taking his face and distorting it naturally out to this, instead of adding something foreign on top of him, bring him through it this way. And this will be the final appliance.
The appliances that were designed for Danny as Oswald Cobblepot were pretty simple, actually. It was a very thin brow piece and a nose connected to it. And I think it had an upper lip as well, so he could have a lot of expression. Because we didn't want to lose the expression in his eyes, because that's very important for a character.
Neil would stand next to me with a clear beaker of liquid that had to be cold because it was glue. Couldn't be warmed. And I knew that, you know what I mean? And she would stand there with her brush. Just wait. I would have the tea. And, you know. And then there would be this moment where I'd put the tea down and she would start. And that first cold brush of glue all around my nose.
We glued down the eyebrows, and then I would start applying with the nose first, get it in place, make sure it was really well situated, because if it wasn't in exactly the right place, his mouth would be off, or it wouldn't cover his mouth totally, or something would be crooked, or the eyebrows would be crooked, or something. So every day I had to, that's where I started. I would get the nose in place and glue the rest of it down from there. Blending an appliance is taking the edge of the appliance and melding it with the skin so that you don't see a transition. You don't want to see where the appliance ends and the face starts. That's what blending is. It has to be a seamless match with skin and appliance. And sometimes that's very difficult because an appliance is opaque and your skin is translucent. So it's very important that you are a pretty darn good painter, because you have to paint that translucency into the appliance. Danny wore false teeth, uppers and lowers, and then I mixed up this concoction that was very simple. It was mouthwash with red and green food coloring in it, which kind of comes up like a really yucky greeny black color. We kind of decided that it was some sort of bile.
I would always take a nice big mouthful of that and kind of let it ooze out when I was, feeling adventurous.
I want to find out who I am by finding my parents, learning my human name. Simple stuff that the good people of Gotham take for granted.
We shaved the top of his head. So his hairline is actually much farther back than it normally is, and we add a hairpiece to that, and we add a lot of grease, and it comes out being real spindly and greasy.
Hey, you won't regret this, Mr. Shrek.
Most of the time, I had gloves on, big black gloves, rubber ones that I wore. But if I had to wear the flippers, the flesh-colored flippers, you had to put them on and glue them on.
Danny wore these appliances on his hand, which was actually like kind of a glove without a thumb. In other words, it just fit over this part of his hand, so we would slide it on, and it was so when it was on, it came to kind of a point. They had little fingernails on them, and he had his thumb, so he could hold on to things. And they were foam latex, so they were very pliable.
What I'd like to do first is to put these little glove thingies on you. Our research tells us that voters like fingers. So if we want to just lose this, we'll do it another time then. Okay, Dad?
I have never seen anybody get into a character more organically. And Danny came up to me and said, I love this. This is really wonderful. And I was not talking to Danny DeVito. I mean, the Penguin was there, and he was scary.
I think Danny really enjoyed doing the makeup. I mean, bar the fact that he had to get in and be in it all the time, I think when he was doing his shtick, he really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a fun character for him to do.
Danny DeVito took a character that had been known for years through the comic book series and created a character that no one had ever seen before, but at the same time was absolutely the Penguin that everyone knew, and for the first time saw what the Penguin was really supposed to look like and supposed to act like.
I always thought that we should take Oswald to, Vegas. Big room, write some good material for him, have him eat some raw fish, bring people up from the audience. Bring them up. It's a fun character. A lot of fun.
A little Pied Penguin action.